بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه واتبع هداه وبعد. We're moving to our fourth technique in our meditative reading of the Tadabbur. So we talked about the first one was capturing the awe of Allah. And the second was about responding. And the third we did last time was about reflecting. And today we'll read the Quran, and the effect and the tadabbur of the Quran could cause healing. And this is what we'll be discussing today. So, can the Quran heal us? And the answer is absolutely yes. And we'll talk about three major types of healing that you can get from the Quran. The Quran can heal the aql, the intellect. The Quran can heal the nafs, the lower self, that is usually inclined towards the haram, that's usually can experience worries and stress. So this kind of nafs needs to be disciplined. And the Quran can help us discipline that nafs. And the last type of healing, we can have healing of the body itself. The Quran can heal the intellect, the aql, because in the Quran you will find a lot of hujaj, a lot of arguments. So I will be giving you the overview of what we'll be talking about, and then we'll address it bit by bit, inshallah. So the Quran has a lot of arguments that I'll show you some of them, that you can meditate on them. And the purpose is to heal the intellect, basically to reach certain faith, to be convinced of the faith itself. And another thing for the intellect in the Quran is the Quranic style itself, the style of the Quran. And this will be perfectly captured if you're reading it in Arabic. Now, healing the nafs can be healed in the Quran in different ways. What I will be focusing on is just 2 points. The first one is the nafs when it comes to the worries. There is one way of healing. And the nafs when it comes to communication with Allah, this could be also a way of healing. So communication with Allah could deal with the lusts and the desires. And worries, we can use some selected verses from the Quran to deal with worries, and we'll give an example. The Quran can heal the body by 2 ways. We have what is called the ruqyah, and we have the du'at. Okay, so let's move to the details. So this is what I have for you tonight. How would the Quran heal the intellect? Of course, we can have a seminar on healing the intellect based on the Quran. And here we'll be concerned with the arguments that the Quran provides for faith. The idea of blind faith does not exist in the Quran. It is true. So let's take the example of belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is true that the Quran takes the idea of belief in Allah as inevitable, something that no one could even doubt about. The Quran says, قَالَتْ رُسُلُهُمْ أَفِي اللَّهِ شَكٍّ. Their messenger said, is there any doubt about Allah, فَاطِرِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the originator of the heavens and the earth? يَدْعُوكُمْ لِيَغْفِرَ لَكُمْ مِنْ ذُنُوبِكُمْ. He's inviting you to forgive your sins. So and this is in Surah Ibrahim, Ayah 10. So it's Surah 14, Ayah 10. That reference is not in the handout you have. So yes, it is true that the Quran deals with the existence of Allah as something something to be taken for granted. But still the Quran gives a lot of arguments for the existence of Allah. So let's move quickly and read our handout and see first what does the Quran say about healing, and then we'll move to how does the Quran heals the intellect by taking the example of our belief in Allah. لو تقرأ لنا يا عم ملك لو تعلي صوتك.
The Quran on healing. People, a teaching from your Lord has come to you.
لا بالراحة خالص. So people, comma كده يعني واحدة واحدة. So you're addressing people.
People, a teaching from your Lord has come to you, a healing for what is in your hearts, and guidance and mercy for the believers.
See the difference? So you again, we're not reading Quran, we're meditating, so it has to be on a low pace. That is 101 meditation on the Quran. It has to be done very slowly. There will be some ayat that has the word sakina, tranquility, that you will be asked to read and focus on the word sakina. That is it. So it has to be read very slowly. There are 6 ayat in the Quran that has the word sakina on them. And we'll come to that. And that could be an exercise in bringing tranquility and peace and inner peace into the heart by just focusing on the word sakina and reading it slowly. So we do not read fast. So the first ayah is very direct. This Quran, people, has healing for you. Has healing for what is in your heart, and guidance and mercy for the believers. Is it mercy for the believers only or for everybody? It's supposed to be mercy for everybody. But since the believers are the people who really benefit from it, it's as if it is only for them. So yes, this is for people, Yohannas. This is not Muslims or this is everybody. But at the end, it will guide the believers, the people who seek guidance. Because مَنْ انْتَفَعَ بِهِ كَانَ هُدًى لَهُ. If you benefit from it, it will be a source of guidance for you. Can we move to the next ayah? So these 3 ayat establish our theme for tonight, that the Quran is made for healing, and your job when you're reading the Quran meditatively is to bring in that healing and to experience that healing, as we'll see in the examples.
We send down the Quran as healing and mercy to those who believe. As for those who disbelieve, it only increases their loss.
Now, so could you read the Quran and you will be more misguided? That is true. If your approach to the Quran is that arrogant, we agreed that we have 6 conditions for benefiting from the Quran. One of them was humble heart towards the Quran. Now, and then the third one?
If we had made it a foreign Quran, they would have said, if only its verses were clear. What foreign speech to an Arab? Say it is guidance and healing for those who have faith. But the ears of the disbelievers are heavy. They are blind to it. It is as if they are being called from a distant place.
Again, so it's the Quran is guidance and mercy and shifa and healing. Now let's move to this big question about God. Do we find ayat in the Quran that gives us assurance that our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not based on blind faith, and it is based on evidence, if it is based on proof? If we look into the Quran, you have 3 major arguments that the Quran presents for the existence of Allah. As I said, of course it is taken for granted, but as you read, you will find these 3 major arguments. The first one is fitrah. Can you read us these ayat on fitrah?
Number 1, fitrah. This scripture is sent down from God, the mighty, the wise. There are signs in the heavens and the earth for those who believe. In the creation of you, in the creatures God scattered on earth, there are signs for people of sure faith. In the alternation of night and day, in the rain God provides, sending it down from the sky and reviving the dead earth with it. And in his shifting of the winds there are signs for those who use their reason. These are God's signs that we recount to you, Prophet, to show the truth. If they deny God and his revelations, what message will they believe in?
We talked about this before. We studied this passage before, and it was about capturing the awe of Allah. But I brought it again to focus on the ending of the ayah. Can you read the underlined line?
If they deny God and his revelations, what message will they believe in?
Exactly. Do you want to be confirmed that there is God? Fitra can help. What is fitra? Fitra means natural disposition, that we're hardwired to believe, that you basically cannot deny God. But this needs an explanation. If you, and we explained this a lot in Seeking Burhan before. If you want to know if there is God, reverse the question. Ask yourself, what would be the consequences of denying God? And see if you can really live by these consequences. So what would be the consequence of denying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If there is no God, that means that there is no meaning, no value, that everything around us are just chemical reactions between atoms that has no meaning, no purpose, no value. So it's all about chemical reactions, no meaning, no purpose, because there is no designer, no value. So what you think is designed is not actually designed. What you think has meaning, what you think is beautiful is not actually beautiful. What you think is ugly is not actually ugly. You're being deluded into this. And value, what you think is halal and haram is just made up. Nothing is halal or haram. Can you live by these consequences? These are the consequences. It is literally intellectual, social, acidic suicide. How could you deny, when you deny God, if God is dead, man is dead too. To deny God, man has to cease first. And you have to put an end to reason itself. So if there is no God, there is no meaning, there is no purpose, there is no value. Period. If you think there is meaning, purpose, and value, you cannot deny God. As I mentioned it before, if you think the sunrise or the sunset is beautiful, you cannot deny God. I can accept your atheism if you're saying, my wife is not beautiful. It's just, I'm being deluded into this. Or the sunrise, no, it's not designed. Because the problem is if you say it is beautiful, that means it is designed to communicate beauty. But you believe that there is no design, there is no designer. This is something in you that denies atheism absolutely. That's why atheism needs a psychological explanation. It does not need a logical explanation. There is this fitra. We're born with this fitra. We're hardwired to believe in Allah. We're hardwired. Because if you do not believe in, because you cannot say there is no God, I am smart. Mention there is no God, but do not stop at this point. Continue. There is no God and no meaning, no purpose, no value. If one slapped you on the face, this is chemical reactions between atoms. Do not say this is wrong, this is normal. Do not take him or her to the court. So it's really, sometimes when you think about this, it's really crazy. Some people go to the extreme and say, raping a little girl is not wrong. It's just religious, arbitrary decisions. Because nothing would, killing a million humans is exactly the same as killing one fly. This is the atheistic worldview. And this is not the extreme one. I mean, this is the consequence. Every idea has a consequence. When you think about the consequence of atheism, there is something in you. It's not about arguments. There is something in you that says, no, this is impossible. Do not ask me how did you get that. You can never, this has been going on for centuries. We're not in the primitive time when you're invoking God because you're scared of nature. No.
Can you reach objective morality outside the course of Allah's teaching?
No morality could be, no, you can't.
You can't.
Can you be good without God? You can be a great atheist with great character, with great morality, but you cannot prove it logically. You do not, in your atheistic worldview, you have no logical foundation for it. You're stealing from religion when you're acting in a nice way. And this is, again, this is the fitrah. Your inner nafs is crying out for God, and you cannot deny it. So, can you be good without God? You can't, because there is no foundation. But you can be whatever you want. But when we're talking about the foundation, no. That's why many atheists would say the idea of forbidding rape is arbitrary religious decisions. If you have to be consistent with, some would be very consistent with their atheistic views that they would say there is no free will. And there's a book by Sam Harris about free will. And what kills me is, okay, when you were writing this, there were no free will as well. So it's really crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You need a psychological explanation, not a logical explanation. So this is the idea of fitrah. And I love this, and it is widespread in the Quran. You see it in the Quran a lot. The idea of addressing something in you. Like an ayah that we discussed before. Do you think you're created in vain? And you will not come back to us? That is capturing the awe of Allah, addressing something in you. You can deny in a debate. But when you go home and sit by yourself, you cannot deny that you're made for a reason. Because if you're not designed, then there is no meaning, no purpose, no value. But you act in life, even if you're atheist, as if there is meaning, purpose, or value.
Can we say that this is from history, this is from our learning and our progression of civilization? We learn what is bad, what is good.
Now, again, we're talking about the foundation of morality. We're talking about the foundation of morality. The idea of morality itself. Even if you have different views later, the idea of morality itself, the idea of value itself, cannot be explained without supernatural explanation. Let's move to the second way that the Quran uses for arguing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second is
2. Causality. Or were they created by nothing, or are they their own creators?
This is very, very simple. I mean, a professor can understand this. A farmer who is illiterate can understand this. Because it gives you options. Okay, there is God or not. Maybe you created yourself, or nothing created you. But this is impossible, and this is impossible. So you're left with the other alternative, which is someone created you. You might say, but why do you call this one God? We'll come to that. We'll come to that. And the Quran will also answer that question. The Quran will answer that question. Because some people would say, Mashi, we believe that this design is, there is a designer behind it. But why do you say God? This is a big jump. Why do you say God? It could be a big computer over there. So we'll come to that. But we'll move to the third ayah that deals with arguments.
3. Design.
And that is design. Now,
He is the one who created 7 heavens, one above the other. You will never see any imperfection in the creation of the most compassionate. So look again, do you see any flaws? Then look again and again. Your sight will return frustrated and weary.
now keep going, read that part.
You will see the mountains and think they are firmly fixed, but they will float away like clouds.
These are one of the signs of the Day of Judgment.
This is the handiwork of God who has perfected all things. He is
Who has
fully aware.
perfected all things. Now, so this is the idea of design in everything around us. And Imam al-Ghazali, he died in 505 of Hijrah. He said, وَقَدْ رُتِّبَتْ أجزاؤه يعني الكون ترتيبا محكما لو غير الترتيب لبطل النظام. He said the universe is so precisely structured that any change in it would make it collapse. I don't know how he made this big claim at that time, but in physics now we know in physics that there are 30 cosmological constants. 30 cosmological constants, like gravity, for example. What is the cosmological constant for gravity? It is 10 to the power 60. So if gravity is altered or changed by 1 in 10 to the power 60, there could never be a possibility for anything to exist. Because the expansion of the universe would be so vast that nothing could be formed, or it would collapse on its own. This is not Ghazali, this is today's physics. 10 to the power 60, and this is a huge number. The cells in your body are 10 to the power 14. The cells in your body, 10 to the power 14. We're talking about 10 to the power 60. And this is what you're not talking about one cosmological constant. You have 30 of them. Same thing can be said about the expansion of the universe. It is, if there is a change by 10 to the power 120, the expansion will be too fast to form anything or to make anything. Same thing for the mass and energy of the universe in the beginning of the time. The mass and the energy has to be really balanced and matched in what? In what ratio? They say the cosmological constant here is 1 in 10 to the power 10 to the power 123. 10 to the power 10 to the power 123. This is what? If there is a change, if this changed by 1 in 10 to the power 10 to the power 123, the mass and nothing would exist. There will be no life-permitting universe. And after this, you're saying there is no God? Now again, someone might say, okay, there is a design. We cannot deny the fine-tuning of the world. But why are you jumping to make an argument for God? It could be something else. It could be something else. Why do you call it God? And we'll move here to the next point. Can you read us the next ayat, please?
Necessary attributes.
Now, so when we're talking about creation, and there is someone or something or that did it, then that agent, we're not calling it God, that agent who caused everything to exist must have some qualities, because that agent cannot bring everything into existence without having power, without having wisdom, without having knowledge, without having will, without having haya, without having irada. Now, if you call that big computer, that's fine. The creator of the world is the big computer, and this big computer is the all-knowing, the all-wise, the all-powerful, and has will and has haya. You just replaced God with big computer. Ibn al-Qayyim used the same argument about nature. He said they are saying nature did it. Okay, so do you believe that nature has power, has knowledge, has all of these attributes? If it doesn't, it can never bring anything into existence. If it does, then you're talking about what we're talking about. But you just changed the name. So we do not want it to be a name game or about semantics. Naam, sahih. Can you read us this ayah, please? These are the end of Surah Al-Hashr.
Had we sent down this Qur'an upon a mountain, you would have certainly seen it humbled and torn apart in awe of Allah. We set forth such comparisons for people, so perhaps they may reflect. He is Allah. There is no God
But
worthy.
just 1 second. What is the connection between this ayah and the next one? Remember we did this last time? This ayah we can apply it here. We're talking about reflecting. Remember we said noticing the flow?
The connection.
Now, so noticing the flow. So the Quran is for tadabbur, and the best thing or the shortcut way for tadabbur is to have tadabbur about the attributes of Allah, because that what revives the heart and makes it responsive. And here you have a list of the attributes of Allah, or some of them. Now,
There is no God worthy of worship except Him. Knower of the seen and unseen, He is the most compassionate, most merciful. He is Allah. There is no God except Him. The King, the most holy, the all-perfect, the source of serenity, the watcher of all, the almighty, the supreme in might, the majestic. Glorified is Allah far above what they associate with Him in worship. He is Allah, the creator, the inventor, the shaper. He alone has the most beautiful names. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth constantly glorifies Him, and He is the Almighty, All-Wise.
now, it's very beautiful. If you see the ending, it says, هو الخالق البارئ المصور, right? The creator, the inventor, the shaper. It does not reflect the Arabic that much, but I did give a khutbah about DNA, and I used this ayah. Allah is the Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir. Al-Khaliq is actually the one who planned everything in advance. So Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, the one who brought it into existence based on His plan. Al-Musawwir is the one who gave it its form and shape.
Designer.
Now, so we're talking about the DNA, and it has the information. Allah made the information first, and based on the information He brought you into existence, and He gave you the shape. So again, I'm not forcing scientific explanations here, but this is what all medieval scholars, how all medieval scholars differentiated between Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, and Al-Musawwir. Al-Khaliq is the one who planned it. Al-Bari is the one who brought it into existence based on His plan. Al-Musawwir is the one who gave it its final shape and form. So again, if we agree on the qualities of the one who should bring everything into existence, then it becomes a semantic discussion. And we call the Creator Allah, you call it God, you call it Jehovah, you call it Elohim, you call it big computer. That's not a big problem to us. Also, some people would insist that for me to believe in God, I must see God. No, you cannot see God. Because simply, God is not like you. That is it. And this is what the Quran says. Allah is not like you. Allah is the creator. Allah is the one who created time and place. You want Him to be limited by the rules and the physics of time and place so that you see Him, so that you believe in Him. We said you can, if you're thinking based on what Allah created you, you will never be able to deny Him. Allah is al-batin, He's hidden, but He's also al-zahir, the manifest. He's hidden, you cannot see Him because He's not like you. And He's al-zahir, you cannot deny Him because of the way He created you and make it easy for you to reach Him, and because of what He created so that you can conclude that He must be there. Muslim philosophers use a word for Allah when they are talking with other philosophers. They say Allah is the necessary being. The necessary being. واجب الوجود. So can you read us this part on no one is like him?
Can the one who creates be equal to those who do not?
Exactly. This is very simple. The one who creates is not like you want to be. You want to see Allah. That means that you're assuming that Allah is like me and you. That Allah is created. You cannot see Allah in this realm because He's beyond it. Now,
Will you not then be mindful? He is the originator of the heavens and the earth. He has made for you spouses from among yourselves, and made mates for cattle as well, multiplying you both. There is nothing like him, for he alone is the all-hearing, all-seeing. No one is comparable to him.
Now, these are three different ayat, and you have the references. Again, when you read this, you see rationality mixed with the natural disposition, and this is the power of the Quran. You do not need to be a philosopher to read the Quran and conclude that there is God or there must be God. So what do we need here for someone who denies Allah? If their questions are sufficiently addressed and they still persist on their denial of Allah, I would say they need a hug, best, as I mentioned before. Sometimes it's not about logical explanations. Can you read us this ayah, please?
Those who do not expect to meet us say, if only the angels were sent down to us.
Again, very materialistic. We want to see God or the angels.
Or we could see our Lord. They have certainly been carried away by their arrogance and have entirely exceeded all limits.
The word in Arabic says the arrogance in themselves. They were carried away by the arrogance in themselves. Imam al-Razi said, because they are hiding their arrogance. So do not, if a big shot is denying Allah, you do not know the exact reason. Does this explain all the cases? No, it does not explain all the cases, but it could explain a good deal of it.
I was going to comment on that. And the atheists, are they basically, when they deny, the values and all that, are they lying to themselves, or sometimes they don't even know they're lying to themselves? Is that the reason why?
They try to be consistent, and they do say clearly. They do say clearly that all of these haram things you believe in are arbitrary. Like Richard Dawkins said something about raping a little girl is when you say this is forbidden, this is an arbitrary decision. So this is called the new atheism. The new atheism is more very frank about accepting the consequences. But again, it's very contradictory, because you cannot talk about atheism as an atheist in a reasonable way unless you trust what you're saying. And you cannot trust what you're saying unless we trust this reason. And we cannot trust this reason unless we believe that it is designed to think. And if it is designed to think, this means that there is a designer. But in the atheistic worldview, this was not designed to think. It came by accident. So how do you even believe in whatever you're saying? How do you trust your reason if this reason is the result of no meaning, no value, no purpose? It's really very self-contradictory. So in order to deny God, as I said last time, maybe we did not explain it enough, now it could be easy. In order to deny God, we have to agree that He exists first, and then pretend as if you're denying Him. Pretend as if He doesn't exist. No.
There's like this interesting book that I just kind of looked through. It's called Spirituality for the Atheist. And it says wake up before the sun comes up and write a gratitude journal. And so it's kind of like contradictory because, they're telling themselves thank you for my health, my parents, like different things just so they can feel better about themselves. But, if it's...
But why? There is no meaning. And even when you're trying to convince somebody to be an atheist, why are you doing that? There is no meaning, there is no purpose. The problem, you can be a great scientist, but get zero in philosophy. This is the crisis and the disaster in the educational system nowadays. Because back then, you didn't have science and philosophy. Back then, it was all philosophy. Part of philosophy was science, the natural philosophy. So even still today, you have PhD. That is doctorate of philosophy, even if you're a scientist. So this is part of the remnants of the past. But anyway, let's move quickly to other areas of how the Quran heals the intellect.
Belief in primordial Islam.
Now,
The messenger believes in what has been sent down to him from his Lord, as do the faithful. They all believe in God, His angels, His scriptures, and His messengers. We make no distinction between any of His messengers. They say, "We hear and obey. Grant us your forgiveness, our Lord. To you we all return."
exactly. Why are we Muslims? Not Jews or Christians? Because there is one God, one message, and all of the prophets are delivering that message. That is it. We believe in Moses and we're not Jews. We believe in Jesus and we're not Christians. We believe in Muhammad and we're not Muhammadans. We are Muslims, people who surrender to God. All of the prophets' job was to make people surrender. When they surrender, what is surrender in Arabic? It's Islam, basically. So this is a very universal term. One God, one message. If this message got corrupted or forgotten or needed renewal, God sends a new prophet. Not to initiate a new religion, but to turn people back or renew the same original message. That's why we believe in all of them. And the last one was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we explained before what went wrong so that Prophet Muhammad would be sent. Now,
So, from like a philosophical standpoint, like if a person is arguing or like discussing with someone on like philosophical grounds where like everything needs to be proved from like scratch, how would one use the Quran to make logical proofs if like from the atheist's perspective, logical proofs are needed to grant the Quran any merit in the first place?
now, when I'm talking about the Quran, I am talking about logical arguments. Not because it's binding, because it is logical. Not because it is coming from the Quran.
Okay, so someone could look at like because of the fact that it's logical and a human being can grasp it intellectually, they could grant merit to it, not from like a revelation basis, but from like a logical basis.
So are you saying revelation has to be mysterious and unable to be understood by people? So it has to be too, I do not want to use a bad word. So the Quran uses fitrah and rationality, and these are mixed together. This is actually one of the great things in the Quran. So you want because if the Quran is like what you were waiting for, people will say, that is very primitive, it does not address our hearts, it does not address our minds. So the Quran makes that balance. The Quran does not go into philosophical discussions. The Quran, as I said, addresses something in you that you cannot deny, makes you see things that you cannot deny. That is absolutely required for any reasonable discussion. Now, so let's move to, again, I did explain this in a video called Introduction to Islam, so you may refer to that, inshallah. Can you move on to questions about Isa alayhi salam?
In God's eyes, Jesus is just like Adam. He created him from dust, said to him, "Be," and he was.
Now, because some would say, what about Jesus? Isn't he the Son of God? And he does not have Father. So that makes him very special. I mean, in terms of his relationship with Allah. So he's part of the divinity. He's part of who God is. Right? He's part of the Godhead. And the answer to this is Adam did not have a father or mother. Can we make Adam God too? Because he doesn't have a father or mother? Yes, Isa alayhi salam does not have a biological father as we do, but that does not mean that he became the son of God in a way that he's part of God or whatever. It's hard to even describe that. The Quran said it's simply like what we believe about Adam. Allah created Adam in a special way and created Isa in a special way. And Isa and Adam are both created. You cannot assign them any divine quality just because of their supernatural creation. You might say, but Isa did great miracles in the Quran. He turned the dead back to life. And this is something that only God can do. Like, can you read that for us, please?
He will send him as a messenger to the children of Israel. I have come to you with a sign from your Lord. I will make the shape of a bird for you out of clay. Then breathe into it, and with God's permission, it will become a real bird.
Exactly. You will see in this ayah 49 in Surah 3, the repetition of this phrase, with God's permission. When Isa is performing miracles, it's done with God's will, with God's power. That's why Imam al-Razi said, Musa alayhi salam turned the staff into a snake. And that is harder than turning the dead back to life. And no one would say that Musa is God. It's a miracle that supports that Musa is a spokesman of God, not God. So miracles do not make the person God. It makes him the right representative of God, like all of the other prophets. Now we're moving to the healing of the heart, of the nafs. You can read the Quran as communication. We're running out of time, so we'll wrap this up quickly. Healing the nafs, reading the Quran as communication with Allah. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak said, I asked Sufyan al-Thawri, when someone starts his salah, what kind of intention he should have for his recitation? He said, يَنْوِي أَنَّهُ يُنَاجِي رَبَّهُ. He should have the intention that he is communicating with Allah. Actually, yunaji is intimate conversation with Allah, is having an intimate conversation with Allah. And we see this very clearly in Surah Al-Fatiha. When the servant says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Allah would say, my servant praised me. And when we say Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Allah would say, my servant glorified me. And when we say Maliki Yawmiddin, Allah would say, my servant exalted me. And when we say Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in, Allah would say, this is between me and my servant, and I will give my servant whatever he asks for. And when we say Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, till the end of the surah, Allah would say, this is for my servant. So read it slowly, read it in an articulate way, do not read it fast, and pause at the end of each ayah as if you're waiting for Allah to respond. And you will receive that sakina and tranquility into your heart. Speaking of sakina, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said, and Ibn al-Qayyim too, said, Ibn Taymiyyah was his teacher. He said, whenever he is in big disaster or calamity, he would read the 6 ayat in the Quran that has the word sakina in it. There are 6 ayat that I have in the handout for you in Arabic and in English that has the word sakina or tranquility. He said, whenever he reads and contemplates and meditates on these 6 ayat, his calamity and his pain would be removed. And he said, and I tried that and it worked for me. And it had great impact on me. Some people would say this is bid'ah, because there is no hadith that says sakina 6 times. But this is extreme bid'ahists. This is really, it's because Ibn Taymiyyah was famous for fighting bid'ahs. So this is a good example to even redefine what bid'ah is. So there is no hadith that says, there are 6 ayat in the Quran that talks about sakina, read them with the intention of healing. But he knows that the Quran is for healing. And he tried this and it worked for him. It could work for you too. That's not bid'ah. Anyway, but you have these 6 ayat, and they have them in Arabic and in English, and they have the word tranquility in it. Every ayah would actually mark a very hard time the Prophet ﷺ is going through. One of them is for Banu Israel, the rest are usually with the Prophet ﷺ. The one when the Prophet was in the cave is there also. Where in Surah Al-Fath you have 2, from Surah Al-Tawbah you have 2, or maybe 3 in Al-Fath, and 3 in Surah Al-Fath. What we say about healing the nafs can be also said about healing the body. And can you heal the body through the Quran? You can. Of course, this does not mean that you cannot use medicine. The Prophet ﷺ asked us to seek medication. There is no problem about that. But you can use the Quran also for physical healing. And Surah Al-Fatiha is an example. It's mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari when some of the companions went to a tribe and they asked them to receive them as guests, and then people rejected them, and then the chief of that tribe was bitten by a snake, and then they said, let's go to those people and see what they have, if they can heal that our boss. And then they said, you know what, you treated us really badly, so if this worked, you have to give us something. And they said, we'll give you a flock of sheep if you can really heal him. And they used Surah Al-Fatiha, and the man got healed, and they got that big flock of sheep. And they wanted to distribute everything, so they said, we need to ask the Prophet ﷺ first. Maybe what we did is wrong. Can we really charge him for that? So the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard about this, he said, assign me 1 share. Meaning it's absolutely fine. So the point is, you can use the Quran for healing. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim also talked about his experience in using Surah Al-Fatiha as healing. He said, he was in Mecca and he was going through a lot of pain, and I couldn't find a doctor to really treat me. And he couldn't find a medicine for what I'm going through. So he would recite Surah Al-Fatiha with that water, Surah Al-Fatiha, with that trust in Allah. It's a form of dua. You think of it as a form of dua. You recite Surah Al-Fatiha, you can do that 3 times, 7 times, and then drink it with the intention of shifa. Can you be healed with dua and Allah would answer your dua? Same thing here. So the ruqya or using the dua, the Quran for healing, it's almost a form of dua. So stay connected to the Quran. And Imam Ibn al-Qayyim said, if you're not reciting the Fatiha with that trust and with that faith, it may not work, because the heart is not that ready and responsive. So this is, again, you can use it as a form of physical healing, and it could work and it could not work. I mean, you're not using it to test Allah. It's an act of worship. As Allah answers your du'as, Allah can heal you through this means and may delay it. But is it valid? Yes, it is valid. Does this mean that you don't see your doctor? You do. But usually there are things that could be beyond the material, and it needs that spiritual. And by the way, if you change the way you think, you physically heal. Sometimes your healing could be something spiritual. Remember the example Imam al-Razi did? I use it in counseling, and it works perfectly to convince people that if they change the way they think, they can change the way they behave and the way they feel. So I have this guy coming to me and he said, you know, close your eyes. He was complaining of, I said, close your eyes. Imagine you split a lemon into 2 halves. You put one in your mouth. What do you feel? He said, very sour. I said, but did you actually put anything? Nothing. But your body reacted to a thought that is not true. Your body reacted physically and in reality to a thought that is not true. So imagine now if you're communicating with Allah that you know is the necessary being. So that should, if we're reading it with trust And with faith, it could change the way we... You could be in pain, but you have that tranquility and inner peace that you cannot explain. And this is what I said, what is beyond the material. We're running out of time, and we'll meet next week. وجزاكم الله خيرا أجمعين.